Hare Krishna. Today we are going to be looking at Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 7. Chapter 7 is entitled The Sacrifice Performed by Daksha. And we'll start with Jai Radha Madhava. Just want to check that the stream is working. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribrajikacharya Astotra Shada Shishi Matas Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Śrīla Prabhupāda Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Śrīla Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Skaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Mahapudam Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Yamuna Maya Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Maharani Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to all the assembled devotees, all glories to all the assembled devotees, all glories to all the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glories to Śrīla Prabhupāda. Okay, so we'll just share the screen. So the first verse that we will read doesn't have a purport. So I'll just read that. And I'll zoom in on this here. So this is chapter 7 of the 4th canto, sacrifice performed by Daksha. And today we reading text 16, and then text 17 is the one with the purport. Okay. The great sage Maitreya said, thus being pardoned by Lord Shiva, King Daksha, with the permission of Lord Brahma, again began the performance of the yajna, along with the great learned sages, the priests, and others. So here we are, going back up a level of the conversation and being reminded here that this whole 3rd and 4th canto is a discussion between Vidura and Maitreya. So as a little rhyme goes, Vidura and Maitreya had a long conversation from the beginning of Canto 3 without cessation till the end of Canto 4. So it's just a little reminder that we're in that conversation. And specifically at the moment, we're in a sub-conversation between Lord Shiva and Daksha. So now let's see what Maitreya has to say here. Actually, I'll just go and we'll recite the verse now, and then we'll come back to that. All right. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vaishnavam Yagya Santatyai Trikapalam Dvijotama Purudasham Niravapam Vira Samsarga Shudaye. Vaishnavam Yagya Santatyai Trikapalam Dvijotama Purodasham Niravapam Vira Samsarga Shudaye. Vaishnavam Yagya Santatyai Trikapalam Dvijotama Purodasham Niravapam Vira Samsarga Shudaye. Excuse me. All right. So now we'll do the word by word. Vaishnavam, meant for Lord Vishnu or his devotees. Yagya, sacrifice. Santatyai, for performances. Trikapalam, 3 kinds of offerings. Dvija Uttamaha, best of the Brahmanas. Purodasham, the oblation called Purudasha. Niravapan, offered. Virabhadra and other followers of Lord Shiva. Samsarga, contamination, dosha, due to his touching. Shudaye, for purification. Just check that the sound's working here. Yeah, and sounds like it is. Okay, great. All right. So let's have a look. Now, if you have any comments or questions as we go through this class, please put them into the chat, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook. We'll be able to see it, and it's nice if we can have an interaction. I can see one person's already commented, so thank you very much. Sandevni. Let's just go back to the translations, and then we'll read the purport. So the great sage Maitreya said, thus being pardoned by Lord Shiva, King Daksha, with the permission of Lord Brahma, again began the performance of the yajna along with the great learned sages, the priests, and others. Thereafter, in order to resume the activities of sacrifice, the Brahmanas first arranged to purify the sacrificial arena of the contamination caused by the touch of Virabhadra and the other ghostly followers of Lord Shiva. Then they arranged to offer into the fire the oblations known as Purudasha. And then the purport by Śrīla Prabhupāda. Śrīla Prabhupāda ki jai. Lord Shiva's followers and devotees, headed by Virabhadra, are known as Viras, and they are ghostly demons. Not only did they pollute the entire sacrificial arena by their very presence, but they disturbed the whole situation by passing stool and urine. Therefore, the infection they had created was to be first purified by the method of offering Puradasha oblations. A Vishnu Yajna, or an offering to Lord Vishnu, cannot be performed uncleanly. To offer anything in an unclean state is called a seva aparad. The worship of the Vishnu deity in the temple is also Vishnu Yajna. In all Vishnu temples, therefore, the priest who takes care of the Archana Vidhi must be very clean. Everything should be always kept clean and neat, and the foodstuffs should be prepared in a neat and clean manner. All these regulative principles are described in the Nectar of Devotion. There are 32 kinds of offences in discharging Archana service. It is required, therefore, that one be extremely careful not to be unclean. Generally, whenever any ritualistic ceremony is begun, the holy name of Lord Vishnu is first chanted in order to purify the situation. Whether one is in a pure or impure condition, externally or internally, if one chants or even remembers the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, one immediately becomes purified. The Yajna arena was desecrated by the presence of Lord Shiva's followers, headed by Virabhadra, and therefore the entire arena had to be sanctified. Although Lord Shiva was present and he is all auspicious, it was still necessary to sanctify the place because his followers had broken into the arena and committed so many obnoxious acts. That sanctification was possible only by chanting the holy name of Vishnu, Trikapala, which can sanctify the three worlds. In other words, it is admitted herein that the followers of Lord Shiva are generally unclean. They are not even very hygienic. They do not take baths regularly. They wear long hair and they smoke ganja. Persons of such irregular habits are counted amongst the ghosts. Since they were present in the sacrificial arena, the atmosphere became polluted, and it had to be sanctified by Trikapala oblations, which indicated the invocation of Vishnu's favor. Trikapala, 3 kinds of offerings, okay? Om Ajnanatimirandasa Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Amritam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We'll read the translation again. Excuse me. The great sage Maitreya said, thus being pardoned by Lord Shiva, King Daksha, with the permission of Lord Brahma, again began the performance of the yajna, along with the great learned sages, the priests, and others. Thereafter, in order to resume the activities of sacrifice, the Brahmanas first arranged to purify the sacrificial arena of the contamination caused by the touch of Virabhadra and the other ghostly followers of Lord Shiva. Then they arranged to offer into the fire the oblations known as Puradasha. So it's a very interesting scene happening in this section of Srimad Bhagavatam. We have the contrasting material modes of nature interacting here. On the one hand, you have the transcendental, yajna, Vishnu yajna, being performed by the Brahmanas. And then on the other hand, you have these followers of Lord Shiva, these demons and like ghosts coming and desecrating the whole scene and killing people. In my mind, I imagine something like, this recent Travis Scott concert where there was some, fire everywhere and, such a demoniac atmosphere. And then, all these young kids got killed through, demoniac forces. And this is a similar sort of situation, and very horrible situation going on. Now, the interesting thing that I was reflecting on recently is that sometimes we read these stories of the Bhagavatam and we think that, these are some nice stories. These are some fictional stories. This is mythology. Just, we need to learn lessons. And so they create these nice stories to educate us and make us, be more entertained while we understand the principles of these fictional stories. We think, it's just like Star Wars. Star Wars is there to teach us a lesson, but it's not really true. And then, so you might say, oh, no, I believe it's true. It must be true. But then, do we really believe it? And this is what I mean. When we hear about these things, how many of you, and I'm only saying this until just a week ago when one devotee made this point to me. It was like an incredible, what would the word be? Like an epiphany almost, or a shift in thinking and a questioning about my real belief in all these things. We may say that we believe that the Bhagavatam is literal, but we may think that, these things all happened in the past. That in Krishna's time there was ghosts and there was, these demoniac followers of Lord Shiva. In Krishna's time there was Putana and these shape-shifting demons, like Vyomasura and Bakasura and Pralambasura and Dhanakasura and you name it, Shakatasura, so many asuras who were actually evil, children-eating, children-killing demons who were able to take different forms. So if we really believe that the Srimad Bhagavatam is actually true and absolutely true, we have to realize that these beings still exist today. That there are still evil, child-killing, shape-shifting demons in the world. That is a freaky concept, right? That blows the mind. But we can get little hints by you seeing what happened at the Travis Scott concert, just picking it as an example, or hearing about some of the other horrible things that people do in this world, really demoniac abuse that goes on, like trafficking, child sex trafficking. These things are going on. And until now, perhaps it's my bias because I've been here in New Zealand. I remember many years ago, actually, about almost 10 years ago, my Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Bhakti Chari Swami, he said to me, yeah, Krishnendu's just enjoying life, just in his comfort zone over there in New Zealand. And I almost took offense at that statement. I really didn't kind of understand what he was talking about. But now, things are different. Growing up in New Zealand, what they call God Zone, the place where, there's milk and honey and, everything's easy. There's no wars, there's no riots, and there's no, big problems like you see in other countries. It's easy to become complacent and think that, oh yeah, I've heard that there's some, evil people, but I just don't think about it. And I don't, I just keep focusing on the positive, which in general is a good strategy, that we should keep our mind on Krishna, because if we dwell on the negative things, it definitely doesn't bring our consciousness up. At the same time, we need to be aware of what's going on. And so this recent situation in the world where, there's just crazy totalitarian measures being taken all over the world, and where there's riots happening all over the world, and where there's children being murdered and things like that. It's very scary to see what's going on, and even more scary when we see that people are just not realizing what's happening. My brother sent me a interesting like a meme the other day, and it said that the best way to keep someone in prison is to make them think that they're not in prison. And it seems to be that that's how it is in this material world. Material world is a covering where we think that, yeah, this place is not so bad. Our enjoyment, we're not, there's a little bit of suffering, a little bit of enjoyment, but overall, it's not too bad, not too bad. And just on a smaller scale as well, you can see how people get duped into different situations. Like in the past, we've seen atrocities have happened. The one that comes to mind immediately would be like Nazi Germany, where gradually there was changes that took place, and most of the people just went along with it because they didn't realize how they were being, bewildered and fooled. So anyway, this is just a verse which just first of all reminded me of this warning that we shouldn't think that everyone, is divine. The Srimad Bhagavatam is full of the battle between the divine and the demoniac, and it's still going on. We shouldn't think that it was only at the time of Prahlad Maharaj that there was demons, trying to make arrangements, for evil purposes. It's always going on at all times. And as devotees, we have to be very careful of it. And Prabhupada warned about it. He talked about satanic governments. He used that word quite often. And demoniac, materialistic. He used different words to describe the governments and the scientists in particular. Prabhupada's pranam mantra was Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtatya Deshatarine. He specifically came here to kick on the face of the scientists with boots on, as Prabhupada would say. He wanted to kick out this materialistic conception like Darwinism, that there is no God, there is no soul, everything comes from matter. And then based on this philosophy, or on this reasoning, then the scientists and doctors do so many experiments. Prabhupada speaks on this quite often. And he wanted us to be aware of it. He didn't want us to keep our head in the sand and pretend we're not in prison. He wanted to remind us this material world is not a place of happiness. But he gave us hope. Just like in this purport here, the conclusion is that when there are unsavory things going on, when there's uncleanliness, and when there's evil influences, there's only one real solution to the problem, and that is to chant Hare Krishna. And I would add to that reading Srimad Bhagavatam, because hearing and reciting Srimad Bhagavatam is also chanting. It's also kirtan. Very important to do these things, because by hearing and chanting about Lord Vishnu, it purifies the atmosphere and counteracts the influence of the evil influences. Just like in Krishna's pastimes, so many of these shape-shifting demons came to try to kill Krishna, and along the way they killed many children. In Kamsa's time, Kamsa, he said, "Go and kill all the children. I don't care if it's Krishna or not. We've just tried to kill all the children, and that way we'll be able to get rid of Krishna." And so we see today these same demoniac things are going on, where governments are passing laws. New Zealand, it happened recently, and when everyone was distracted by the beginning of the so-called coronavirus pandemic, then they passed a law in New Zealand that basically allows pregnancy right up until the time of just after birth. And it doesn't really require any, authorization. It's basically just up to the doctor that's present at the time. So this is demoniac. And Prabhupada spoke very strongly against this, that this abortion, the killing of children, can only create inauspicious results. And so it's not surprising that we have these, pandemic type of situations where, many people are dying, whether it's from the virus or if it's from the vaccine itself that they've given out. But so many people are dying and, being punished. And this is a karmic reaction. Like Prabhupada said, when there's a lot of cow killing going on, it results in wars. So right now we're in a war. If you don't believe me, just look at the news and what's happening all around the world and all these protests. Look in Australia, where the government's firing shots at people. Same thing in Holland and other places. In Australia, they're rounding people up with military trucks and putting them in concentration camps. So we're at war at the moment, and the only solution is to chant Hare Krishna. We have to, really double down on our, personal habits so we become pure ourselves, and we also need to double down on chanting the holy name. I was really enlivened when I saw these riots were going on in Holland, and we could hear on the BBC News the devotees were doing kirtan. This is the solution to this problem. It says that the sanctification is only possible by chanting the holy name of Lord Vishnu. And so, this is very important. So this verse is talking a lot about cleanliness also on a general level. When we're doing deity worship, cleanliness is very important. And Prabhupada said, revolutionary cleanliness. That he said, godliness isn't, cleanliness is not next to godliness. Cleanliness is godliness. And sometimes the standards that Prabhupada have, if we didn't know it came from Prabhupada, we'd think this person's being fanatic. In the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, we hear about Raghava Pandit. Hope I got the right name there. He was very particular about the offerings being very clean. And Prabhupada said that he's not just, he doesn't have some phobia about, germs or something, or clean or dirtiness, but rather, he was just thinking how he can serve the Lord in the best possible way. And cleanliness and punctuality are the things that Prabhupada emphasized, and particularly cleanliness is so important. So Prabhupada's mentioned here that there's 32 offenses in the worship of the deity. I didn't get a chance to pull those up, but I suggest you have a look through those because some of them are very interesting. And many of them are related to cleanliness, that we shouldn't come before the deity after having, been to a crematorium or after passing stool, these sort of basic things. So on a physical level, Prabhupada said that there's the external cleanliness. Actually, there's a funny place where he says there's external and internal cleanliness. External cleanliness means you take a bath and things like that. And internal cleanliness is that you make sure you pass stool every day. So this is like the external, internal cleanliness. But then in general, he says the external cleanliness is that we keep our body very clean. We take a bath at least twice a day. And we always, we wash ourselves and clean ourselves if we get contaminated at any time. Make sure our clothes are clean, things like this. But then the internal cleanliness comes from chanting the holy name of the Lord. By chanting the holy name, it allows us to come in contact with Krishna. And it's described just like Krishna is like a fire. And if you put a metal rod into fire, eventually it acts just like fire. Fire is a very purifying element. So for our own life, we want to burn up our sinful aspect of our life, our materialism, and become Krishna conscious. We want to be connected to Krishna. We want to become like Krishna. Not that we become Krishna, but we want to have that same pure quality. And the way that we get it is by association. And association is mostly about our mind, as it's mentioned in this verse here, in this purport. Whenever there's a ritualistic ceremony, the holy name of Lord Vishnu is first chanted. And it says here, whether one is in a pure or impure condition, internally or externally, if one chants, or even remembers the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, one immediately becomes purified. So this is a very amazing statement here. I'll just zoom right in on it because I think it's so important. I think this is the crux of the whole subject here. There we go. Whether one is pure or impure, internally or externally, if one chants or even remembers the holy name of the Supreme Lord, Personality of Godhead Vishnu, one immediately becomes purified. So this is what we need to do. We need to remember the holy name of the Lord. And Prabhupada has given us a process, which is a brainwashing process. Because there's so many influences in this material world. There always have been. And perhaps now, with technology, it's even more, it seems to be affecting people on a much larger scale because of the ability of technology to reach so many people at once and to be able to contaminate the consciousness. And the whole society becomes, highly influenced, by, wrong ideas and materialistic thinking. So it's very important that when we chant, it allows us to purify our consciousness and come into contact with Krishna, and therefore we will be able to see clearly. This is where the brainwashing comes in. Chanting itself, just by associating with Krishna in his holy name, purifies us. And even more when we can associate our intellect with the Lord through studying Srimad Bhagavatam. Even more, it aligns our thinking in the way that is pleasing to Krishna, and that is in alignment with the absolute truth, not with the Mayic world that we're living in, which is full of so much cheating and evil agendas. So this is the solution. We can see that in this particular arena, there was a fight going on, and it wasn't like people just stand around and don't do anything. You do whatever you can in the particular situation. But ultimately, the real solution is to surrender to the Lord. Just like Draupadi, at first she was trying to resist when the Dushashan was trying to make her naked in front of all of the men in the assembly. And she was trying, but it wasn't successful. Ultimately, she had to put her hands up and depend on the Lord. And so many times we find ourselves in these situations that, we do our best to fight. Prabhupada said that we need to speak out against these demoniac governments. He said in one, I'm just trying to remember, is it a letter? It was on, you get these daily, it must have been a letter. You get these daily calendars and it has quotes. So on one of those, Prabhupada was saying that conversation, anyway, whatever it was, but Prabhupada said that these governments, are demoniac and we need to speak up and expose it. And he said the ISKCON society should be doing this. Unfortunately, these days, it seems that on the whole, most of the, kind of leaders seem to rather just do what the government wants and never speak up because, they want to get some funding from the government or don't want trouble from the government or something like that. But Prabhupada's mood was very different. Prabhupada's mood was very strong speaking. He never would compromise on any of his points, and he would directly call out the demoniac leaders. So we need to do that. We need to speak up when things are not right. We need to speak against it, and we need to, take practical actions in that regard as well. But ultimately, the power is that we need to connect everything to Krishna. So we may educate people about the problems that are going on in our society, but unless we bring them to Krishna consciousness, we're not really helping anybody. If someone's starving in the street and we give them some food to eat, it doesn't really help them. There's like the expression, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. So it's not a non-vegetarian example, but you get the point. that if we just give something to someone that temporarily solves their problem, but doesn't empower them to get to the root of the problem, we're not really helping them. So in our Krishna consciousness movement, through chanting, through reading Srimad Bhagavatam and studying Prabhupada's example and, picking up on his mood, we can understand things as they are with a clear mind. And that's why so many devotees, are picking up what's going on in the world around us at the moment, and that there's something not right, and they want to do something. So as devotees, we have an incredible opportunity here. There's people who are suffering out there. There's people who are starting to realize that the government and the people that are supposedly protecting them are actually killing them. And we need to speak out against this. And the people that are becoming aware of this will be so open to our Krishna consciousness that if we can explain to them that, yes, Prabhupada taught us these things. The Srimad Bhagavatam explains all of this, the divine and the demoniac natures, that we need to surrender to Krishna. It's the only solution. So we tell people what's going on, materially speaking. We don't hide it. We don't pretend it's not happening. We be straightforward and we address these things. But we also need to be, as devotees of the Lord, we need to explain to people, but this is just a symptom. The real problem is Krishna consciousness. Take up the chanting of the holy name. Surrender to the Lord. And in this way, we'll be able to solve these problems for real. It's described here that in this yajna, it was within the material world. And yet, by chanting the holy name, it solved the material situation. It purified the material situation. So just from a material point of view, if we want to solve the problems of the world that we're facing today, the solution is Krishna consciousness and preaching to people. You're suffering. The only solution to solving your suffering is to chant the holy name of the Lord and to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engage in devotional service. To study the Srimad Bhagavatam, to get the bigger picture. Purify yourself by chanting. Purify others by chanting. Engage others in the chanting of the holy name. This is the solution to the problems that we're facing. It's not a time to back away and back down when these material calamities are happening. We need to stand up and say, yes, we know what's going on. Prabhupada has taught us. The Bhagavatam has given us the vision. Now come and join us. The only solution is Krishna consciousness. And that's just from, like a material point of view. That's the only hope to solve this. Prabhupada said to one devotee, he said, I'm worried that the material civilization is going to collapse, because Prabhupada predicted that. He said that your Modika civilization will be finished within 50 years. He said it in 1973. I'll let you do the maths on that. He said, within your lifetime, you'll see this Modika civilization being finished. That the dogs will be roaming the cities looking for people to eat because there's no food. That there'll be starvation and war and all of these things. So Prabhupada predicted these things. And many of us might have thought, Prabhupada's just some conspiracy theorist. How's that possible? But now we see that these things are happening. So it's our duty as a follower of Prabhupada to maintain Krishna consciousness and share it to the people that are suffering. Because Prabhupada said, one devotee was saying, what if society collapses? Prabhupada said, it won't collapse if you take shelter of the holy name. So this is our only hope. Our only hope is to take shelter of Krishna consciousness and share it with others. And then Krishna will certainly protect us. And ultimately, even if our endeavors from the material point of view are apparently a failure, we see the evil going on in the world, and we're practicing our Krishna consciousness, and we're doing whatever we can, to avoid it or to stop it, and we're not successful in stopping it. Maybe Krishna has a plan that he wants there to be like a cleansing of the world at this point in time, and that's why these plagues, these pandemics, and demoniac wars are happening. Then maybe he has a plan so that the golden age of Lord Chaitanya can come out of that. Just like in the sacrifice of Lord Shiva, there was chaos and there was all kinds of death and inauspicious things happening. But then Lord Shiva, the great devotee, came through, and by his mercy and by the endeavor of the devotees, the sanctity of the arena was purified again, and therefore the all auspicious yajna of Lord Vishnu was able to be performed. So in the same way, this world is going through chaos, and it reminds us of this yajna of Lord Shiva. And there may be more deaths and more carnage and more turmoil and chaos for some time, but never doubt that the golden age of Lord Chaitanya will certainly arise from this arena to purify. The Sankirtan movement will purify all of the inauspiciousness of the time and bring in the golden age, which is predicted for 10,000 years. So whatever happens, the solution is Krishna consciousness. And for ourselves personally, as long as we remain Krishna conscious, whatever happens in society, we don't have to worry, because we're not the body, we're the soul. So we do our best to protect ourselves, and we do our best to help other people who are suffering. And that is by maintaining our Krishna consciousness, increasing our Krishna consciousness, spreading it as far and wide as possible, and leaving the result to Krishna. If Krishna wants, he can, purify all of the demonic influences and, bring in the golden age. Or if he chooses to allow a massacre, like what's happening in this yajna, before the golden age comes through, he may also choose to do that. And if we live or die, it doesn't matter, as long as we remain fixed in our Krishna consciousness and stay true to Prabhupada and surrender to the Lord. If we die, that's glorious, because Prabhupada said he wanted to die with his boots on in the battlefield. So if we have that spirit of wanting to serve Krishna no matter what situation, then even if we die, that's glorious, and we'll continue on in our path towards Krishna. So I'll stop here. Thank you. I see one thank you sign in the comments from Beverly. Hare Krishna, thank you for that. And if anyone has any questions, you need to be quick, because I will wrap it up here. But thank you for your attention. Naturally, not everyone will be on this live, but there may be people that watch afterwards. So feel free to add, comments and questions, and I'll make it a point to go and check if anyone has asked a question, and I'll do my best to answer or further the discussion. All right, so I'll end here, and just again to summarize that whether one is in a pure or impure condition, internally or externally, if one chants or even remembers the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, one immediately becomes purified. So this is the conclusion. Take shelter of the holy name of the Lord, and in this way we have a hope of making the current situation better. And even if it doesn't externally make the situation better, it will connect us with the Supreme Lord, and it will create auspiciousness for ourselves and for others that will allow us to go back to Godhead. So, Ami Atma Prabhu, thank you very much for your comment. Hare Krishna. And I'll end here. Hare Krishna. Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtan Ki Jai. Total world victory of Hare Krishna. Jai, Hare Krishna.